Today we are switching over to online learning. To take attendance, please email me before 3:30. Today it can be anything. It can be a simple hello, or it could be a question about today's assignment. I've shared the assignment over people's school emails and their personal emails if I have them. If you want me to share it to your personal email, please email me what that is using your school email. The assignment is due at Thursday at the end of the day at 3:30 p.m. You can do it on a separate piece of paper and take a picture of it and send that to my email. Make sure that you have your answers boxed. Today I will cover the assignment. So before we do the assignment, let's do a quick review of SOHCAHTOA. So everyone remembers, hopefully, that S stands for sine, C stands for cosine, and T stands for tangent. In our calculators, those look like sine, cosine, tangent. If we have any given right triangle with an angle, say our angle is x. If x is right here, our opposite side is right here. Our hypotenuse is always the longest side. It's also the side that's not touching the 90-degree angle right here. That leaves the last side to be our adjacent side. To use these trig formulas, we're going to use opposite over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse, or opposite over adjacent. If I wanted to show you what sine of x is, I would put opposite, which is right here, and divide it by my hypotenuse. If I wanted to figure out what cosine is, I take my adjacent and divide by my hypotenuse. And lastly, if I want to find what tangent is, I take my opposite side and divide it by my adjacent side. Suppose these have numbers. Suppose opposite is equal to 3, adjacent is equal to 4, and hypotenuse is 5. Then I would put 3 over 5, because opposite is 3 and hypotenuse is 5. For cosine, I would put adjacent over hypotenuse, so I would put 4 over 5. And lastly, tangent is going to be opposite over adjacent, which is 3 over 4. If you know what the angle of x is, you can plug this into your calculator and get a decimal. So I'm going to use that trigonometry to find the area of this triangle. Now, this triangle isn't any kind of special triangle, and it doesn't even have a 90 degree. It has 28, 16, and then one side length is 20 degrees. Now, I can use the fact that they all add up to 180 to solve for that missing angle. So I'll take 180 is equal to the 16 plus the 28 plus that missing angle. And I'll get that missing angle is equal to 136 degrees. And I do that by subtraction, by subtracting the 16 and by subtracting the 28. So if this is 136 degrees, that doesn't help us because that's not 90. To get a 90 degree out of this and to be able to use trigonometry, I have to cut this in half such that this is 90 and this is 90. Now, if you remembered from when we were doing areas of triangles that this is the height of our triangle and that this whole thing is the base, and that the area of a triangle is equal to base times height divided by 2. Now, since I've cut my triangle into two triangles, x is going to be the base of what I'm going to call triangle A, and y is going to be the base of what I'll call triangle B. So I split my whole triangle into two, and each of these triangles is a 90 degree, which means that trigonometry applies. So notice that I split the bases into x and y, but x plus y is equal to the whole base. If you added this x to y, you get the whole base. And so I can solve for b, I can solve for h, and that means I can solve for my area. So let's start this solving for h. first I'm gonna redraw triangle A. So it has a 28-degree angle. This is H and this is 20. So first things first, I'm going to label my angle. I'm going to label my opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent sides. Opposite's always the one that's opposite from the angle that you're talking about. The hypotenuse is always the longest side, and it's also the one that's not touching the 90 degree. The adjacent's the last one. So notice that I have my opposite and my hypotenuse. Now I have to remember which trig function that is. Is that going to be sine, cosine, or tangent? So, ca, or toa. In this case, h and o, that's going to be sine. Because sine has an o and h. Sine is opposite divided by hypotenuse. So I'm going to set this up with sine. Sine of 28 degrees is going to be equal to our opposite side, which is h, divided by our hypotenuse, which is 20. Now to solve for h, all I do is multiply by that 20. And I cancel it. That means h is equal to 20 times the sine of 28. Now in my calculator, I'm going to clear it. I'm going to take 28 degrees and then take the sine of it. And then I'm going to multiply by 20. And I get that, I'm going to round that to 9.4. I get that h is equal to 9.4. And I'm going to box my answer. Over here, I'm going to have all my answers. X, Y, B, and H. So this is my answer box. And I'm going to put 9.4 in my answer box. I need to see this when you're doing your sheet. So now I know what h is. Now let's try to solve for x. Now remember, I put x at the base of this triangle A. That means x is going to be right here. So x is adjacent. Now I have adjacent and hypotenuse. So that's A and H, which means I'm going to be using cosine. So I'll set this up with cosine. The cosine of 28 degrees is equal to the adjacent side, which in this case is x, divided by the hypotenuse, which is still 20. So if x is being divided by 20, I got to multiply by that 20 to cancel. And I get that x is equal to 20 times the cosine of 28. And again, in my phone, I'm going to hit 28 first, take the cosine of it, and multiply by 20. And I get that x is equal to 17 I'm going to round that to 7. And remember, these are all in inches. So inches, inches. So x is 17.7 inches. And I'm going to box my answer. I'm going to box it here. I'm also going to box it in my answer box. So now I have x and h, and that's basically all the sides of this triangle A. Now I can move on to triangle B. So triangle B, I'm going to redraw as well. So this is 16. This is h, which we know is 9.4. And this is y. So I'm going to circle my angle, just like always, label my opposite side, my hypotenuse, and my adjacent side. Now I already know what h is, and I'm trying to solve for y now. So that's my adjacent side. The other one I happen to know is my opposite side, so that's A and O. So I'm going to be up here using TOA. I'm going to set this up with TOA. That means the tangent of 16 degrees is equal to opposite gets divided by adjacent. So in this case, opposite h gets divided by adjacent, which is y. Now remember that h was 9.4. 9.4 is getting divided by y. So to solve for y, I got to multiply by the y. Because if y is on the denominator, I need it to be in the numerator. So I'm going to cancel here, but now y is in the numerator on the left side. So y is getting multiplied to the tangent of 16 degrees. That's equaling 9.4. If y and tangent are being multiplied to solve for y by itself, I must divide. I got to do the opposite of multiplying by tangent, which is dividing by tangent, so they cancel. Then I divide by the tangent on the other side as well. So in my calculator, I'll take the tangent of 16 degrees. So I'll take 16 and I'll hit tan. And I get that I'm taking 9.4 and I'm dividing by 0.28. So then I'll do that in my calculator. I'll take 9.4 and divide by 0.28. And I get 33.5 inches. And don't forget putting this in my answer box. And there's going to be some calculator error. Oh, excuse me. The 5/7 rounds that to a 6. So there's going to be some calculator error. These aren't going to be totally on spot, but as long as they're within 1 or 2 inches of the real thing, that's totally fine. So now I know what x and y are. So if this is x, if x is 17.7 and if y is 33.6, I got to find what the whole base is now. That means the base is going to be equal to x plus y, which is equal to 17.7 plus 33.6. So I'll take 33.6 and I'll add it to 17.7. And I get that b is equal to 51.3 inches. And I'm going to box it. And I'm also going to put it over here in my answer box. So notice that this whole base now is 51.3. Now I can finally solve for my area. Remember that area is equal to base times height divided by 2. So in this case, our area is going to be our base, which is 51.3, times our height, which is 9.4, right? I'm getting these values right here. And I divide that by 2. So I'll take the 51.3, I'll multiply that to the 9.4, and then I'll divide by 2. So that my area is equal to 241.11 inches squared. And I'm going to put that in my answer box. I'm just going to round it to 1 decimal point. So now in my answer box, I should have x, y, b, h, and a. And you've solved for the area of this random triangle.